Hi, good morning. I want to take a minute and talk about narcissism. I love, love, love talking about narcissism. And usually I do a lot of focus on the empath, but today I want to kind of step into the mind of the narcissist. And there's a lot of hate right now on narcissism to the point where it's trending. And every time I see this, it upsets me. About 2 years ago, I actually met a narcissist who was diagnosed with narcissism, and he it was extraordinary to see a narcissist, a diagnosed, I need to clarify, somebody with narcissistic personality disorder open up and explain his complete upset about this. Now, I've known nothing but narcissists my entire life, right up until 2020. That is finally when I got away from all of them. My friends, my family, my brothers, all of them. And that is what really set me on this path of diving into the mindset. And I realized a couple things that were extraordinary in changing my perspective on them. The first thing was, these are people who had love used as a weapon against them. These are people who had humility used as a weapon against them. So now the emotion of humility is actually a trigger for them. Now, the reason why this is a problem is because humility is the core emotion that is required for repentance, regret, and seeking help. But for a narcissist, they now have a trigger with humility, with being humbled, which is why a narcissist is so extreme on self-importance, is because they are completely void of humility. You have a spectrum of emotions. You have humility on one side, and you have self-importance and self-value on the other. When you have humility, too much humility, you fall into the realm of being so humble as to be self-sacrificial. You lack all self-importance and self-value. And what ends up happening on this end of the spectrum is, well, depression, suicide, and basically a doormat, even a maggot mentality where everyone else can walk all over you because you have no self-worth. That is being, well, humble, so we think. But self-value is the complete and polar opposite of that, and that's where the narcissist lives. This is somebody who is totally devoid of humility. And as a result, there is nothing keeping this person in check. So their self-importance and self-value go all the way over. Now, the problem is this realm is insecurity because they lack the balance. And this realm is insecurity because they lack the balance. The goal is to use your humility to pull back your self-value so it stays in check. Likewise, you're supposed to be using self-value to pull your humility back so it stays in check. Technically, being humbled is actually right here in the sweet spot. So you have this beautiful negative and positive charge literally pulling on each other in such a way that they keep each other in check, and it holds them in a beautiful balance right here in the neutral zone. When you have just the right enough of self-value and just the right enough amount of humility, what ends up happening is this neutral zone where you build confidence, where you build self-worth, but you keep it in check so that you don't walk all over other people. And that is the sweet spot. That's where we all should be focusing on being. You don't want to be a doormat. You don't want to be a maggot. You don't want to be completely to the point where you let people just walk all over you. You need to value yourself so you can stand up for yourself. But without that humility, it ends up going all the other way. Now, the people who are over here with their self-value and self-importance, because of their insecurity, they seek out victims. And that's when they target these people over here. Now, these people seek servitude. They don't feel complete unless they serve. So these people in the humility area actually want to serve these people, the narcissist, because they feel needed. The reason why this occurs is because of codependency, which comes from, well, our parents, specifically our mothers. What ends up happening is women in our society are very much taught that they have no identity unless and until they have a child to give them importance in life. So when a mother has a child, she suddenly has identity. And she takes the child and uses the child to fulfill her purpose in life. We see this all the time with mothers in every culture almost, where you're nothing unless you are, if you're nothing when you're a woman, until and unless you have a child and you give that child everything you have. And if you don't, you're considered a bad mother. To the point where as the child develops, the mother completely intertwines her identity in with her children, so that if you were to take away her children, she is nothing. And that's the problem. Now, when you have that kind of a codependency happening, two things happen. First, the mother develops this concept of, I love you, I need you. And the child will learn, oh, love equals being needed. Or, oh, love equals needing other people. The narcissist is the person who needs other people. They need them to be controlled and manipulated. They need them to serve them. They need them to obey. That's the narcissist mindset. That's the full value. The other side of that is being needed. That's the empath. That's the one with no self-value. Their only purpose in life is to serve and to be needed. And if they're not serving and if they're not being needed, then they have no identity. So the mother who is cultivated and groomed to identify the need of having children for her own identity ends up teaching her children this massive codependent cycle that you have no meaning unless I need you. Because the need and the love are both intertwined. It is one of the most mentally toxic things you can possibly set up. And our culture nourishes this, encourages it, and punishes women who don't follow through with it. So as a result, you have a lot of mothers who seek out children and child rearing just so they can fill their identity. We see this as early as 15-year-olds, where girls are getting pregnant at an earlier age because they're needing a child to define themselves, because that is what they were taught by their mothers, which is why we are seeing an increase of child and teenage pregnancy. And when the child finally leaves the nest and goes off on their own, the mother is left with a crushing sense of empty nest syndrome because her identity has been taken away from her. But what ends up happening is developing this massive codependency between mother and child. And as a result, one mother can produce 2 to 4 children or more, every one of them with a variation of the narcissist empath cycle. Each one of them cultivated and nurtured under the need equals love, or being needed equals love. And it falls into those two categories. So once you become aware of this, as a mother, once you become aware of it, it is separating the concept of need from love and understanding that you don't need to have needing to have love. If you were to take away being needed and just throw that away and no one needs you and it's just you, understanding that that is a full, healthy cycle and embracing that and getting your mindset to that concept, removing the toxic belief that being needed equals love or needing other people is love, it breaks the cycle. But you have to acknowledge that toxic belief. That toxic belief was taught to you by your mother. Absolutely was taught to you by your mother. And that's why we see this cycle going over and over again. It's because we have been nurturing and grooming our women in our society to have this codependent relationship with our children. So it's the mother who, because of the way our culture grooms women, has been teaching children, teaching every child that they have, this codependent cycle that creates narcissists and empaths, all because of how they define and use love. I'm nobody without my children. Oh, well, my children are my entire life. No, no, you were somebody before you had children. Yes, I was somebody who aspired to have children. And I was one of them. I was there. I watched this happen to my mom. And when my mom finally reached a point when she was around 30 years old where she said, "Who am I?" and she realized that she was someone separate from her identity, she tried to get out of it. And I watched my entire family turn on her and slander her, all because she wanted to break the codependent cycle between her and her children. It backfired. She clung to her children even more to basically continue to be accepted. Because as soon as she started to break away from that mindset and change her mindset into, I want to be an individual, I don't want codependency anymore, she was immediately labeled, slandered, called a whore, and thrown away. So for the sake of avoiding rejection, she returned to it. That's how I became aware of this. That's when I went into the study of it and really started to dig down into it. And then when I refused to have the same codependent cycle with my children. I refused to develop that I have to have my children to define who I am. I refused that. And as a result, 2 of my 3 children are very much independent, isolated individuals that are completely separate from me, the mother's identity. My husband, my then husband, is a grandiose narcissist, and he adopted my oldest daughter, and he groomed her very well. So now she has an attitude, she's very much a grandiose narcissist. Like she's got there's nothing I can do. She has completely ostracized me and thrown me away because I am not catering to the system. And everyone in my family who holds the same mentality of, you identify as a woman, your children are attached to you, they are part of you, how dare you throw your children away, you are now no longer a part of the system, we have thrown you away. And now my brothers have given me the same label that they put on my mother, and they have cast me away because I have refused the narcissistic cycle, and I have refused that codependent cycle of the symbiotic between mother and child. And it's all on how we define love. It's the concept that we have this toxic belief that being needed is something we should value. No, it's not. It's horribly destructive. Being needed is how do I even begin to explain? If you associate comfort with being needed, if you associate love with being needed, that puts all of your love dependent upon the needs of other people. And when you become dependent upon the needs of other people, you become their slave. Because so long as they have a use for you, so long as they can use you, then you have value. I cannot tell you how much that is a slave mentality. And that's it. I really, that is it. It's a slave mentality when you think of your own value and identity in the concept and in the measure and metric of who can use me today? Who can I serve? That's slavery. And now you have a society that's built off of slave owners and slaves. And the empaths are the slaves. They're the ones walking around going, who needs me? Who can I serve? Free of charge. I'll just link up all of I am to you and I'll let you drain me. Please, who will be my parasite? And then you've got the narcissist who's going, I need somebody, I need this from you. Who's available to be needed? Who wants to be needed? Because I need you. I'm looking for somebody, please apply here. I'm looking for somebody who I can totally abuse and drain and use until they're a withered husk, and then I can throw them away. Who's willing? And every empath raises their hand. You tell me that's not a slave master, slave society. And it's all because of how we define love, self-worth, and identity. Now here's the problem. Narcissists associate humility with trauma. So now the narcissist will never seek out help. A narcissist associates the words, I need help, with being abused, with being rejected. So they will never seek out help because that is where their trauma lies. So in order to even get help, the narcissist is the one who has to confront their trauma first. Which is why I say they suffer the most. Everybody else has the ability to feel humility, has the ability to experience the phrase, I need help. So everybody else can seek out help without having to overcome. Well, they have more to overcome. We all have the same thing to overcome, fear of change. But to have that added trauma of associating the phrase, I need help, with trauma, it's a whole nother level of obstacle, which is why so many narcissists do not go to therapy. We almost never see a narcissist in therapy because you require humility and you require the phrase, I need help. Oh, and you also need the phrase, I was wrong, which the ego of the narcissist does not allow them to have because they were abused and traumatized with the phrase, I was wrong. So the narcissist is in a very rare position of never being able to seek out help. So that is my perspective on narcissism. That is my perspective on what exactly the condition entails, what it starts with, why they do what they do. And no, they are not aware of it any more than you were aware of your PTSD before someone pointed out that you have triggers. Narcissism is a trigger. Narcissism is just like PTSD. It has a catalyst and triggers. This is why we have vulnerable narcissism and grandiose narcissism. The difference is there's a trigger response, which is why you can have somebody who comes in and they're wonderful and they're pleasant, but then you trigger the narcissism and the narcissism turns on. And now you're dealing with their narcissist side. It's no different than having a PTSD episode. They have a narcissistic episode. Now, some people are always triggered. Some people have a trigger that turns on and they can't turn off that PTSD trigger, so they are permanently in trigger mode. I've met people like that. Narcissism is the same. There are some people who have that trigger flipped on and it never turns off. They are forever in the war zone. Now, most people with narcissism, I believe all people with narcissism, also have PTSD. So, and it's the PTSD that triggers the narcissism. That's just the way their program works because that's how they were loved as children. They did not have an identity unless they were needing someone else. The narcissist is the child who needed the mother, and the mother came running. I need you, Mom. Okay, I'm here. What is it? I need you. And that's the relationship that defined them. I need my mother. Look, my mother is present. The empath was, oh, my mother needs me. What can I do for you? I'll give you anything, mother. What can I do to make you happy? That's the empath. That's the relationship that defined love. That without that mentality, there was no acceptance, no home, no belonging. There was nothing. There was no identity. My identity was defined by what I could do to serve my mother. Likewise, my older brother, his identity was defined by how his mother needed him. It's extraordinary. And it's always the first child. It's almost always the first child. It's like the mother has the child and she serves the oldest child. And then she trains all the other children to serve her. So the first child, the oldest child, is almost always the one who goes on to be the narcissist. Because as soon as she has the first child, she serves the child because she needs to serve. She needs a master. She needs a master. So she turns her first child into her master, training the child that the child gets the love if he is her master. Oh my God, this is such a BDSM situation. I cannot explain it to you. Like, this is like, oh my God, this is so dominatrix and so submission. It's like, oh my God. And this is it. This is exactly it. It's the idea of, oh, please, I will serve you. And the narcissist says, yes, I will own you. And they start to correlate, and that codependency nurtures that mindset. But all the other children the mother have, well, she doesn't need to serve them because she's got her master, and one man can only have one master. So she serves the oldest. Now, if you want her attention, she has to need you. And that's where the competition between teenagers starts, or children starts. The competition between siblings. Well, he's getting all the attention, yes, because she serves him, because she's the master. He's the master to her. So now you're put on this massive back burner of, well, when are you going to need me? When are you going to need me? When are you going to need me? I'm with the master. Welcome to narcissism. I'm going to marinate on this now. I'm just going to step away and just think on this. But that is my my brain on narcissism. That is my mindset on it. That's how I see it moving and functioning. There's a lot more to it, but I cover this in all of my classes. Like I love this stuff. This is my favorite thing. And I go over how to break the cycle, how to identify it, and how to step out of it and separate yourself from the cycle. And because I'm a BDSM mistress, this stuff, like, I can see it on a whole nother level of, oh my God, everybody's got to have the dominatrix. Everyone's got to have the person in charge. And then you've got all these subs basically following the submission. And those are the ones who seek out servitude. Like, oh my God, I see the psychology and the BDSM just merging together in this beautiful cocktail, and I'm like, oh yes. And so every time I talk to somebody about it and I can see how it shifts and moves, I'm like, oh yes, this is yummy psych stuff. So if you want to learn more, follow me, watch my videos. I talk a lot on this. I actually have a narcissist course on my YouTube channel. Go ahead and take a look at that, and you can see, like, I have 4 how to get out of the cycle, how to break it, and how to abuse-proof yourself from narcissism. And again, it's all with that toxic belief. Redefine how you define the concept of needing. Do not need. It is a bad thing. It really is. But take a look at the concept and your mindset, your relationship to love, and your relationship to how you define being needed. That is it. That is it right there. Locate that toxic belief and challenge it. Really adamantly challenge it, and that'll break your hold. That'll immediately release you from the cycle. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.